You can't fill a cup that's already full of crap. You got to empty it out, clean it out, and then put new stuff in it. And that's what's happening with letting go of your shadows to let more light in. Is you're basically kind of doing like a cleanup of your soul. Hi. Okay, so I wanted to talk about shadows. I feel like a lot of people have heard about shadow work, but they don't really know like what it is. So shadow work is a way for you to look at the bad sides of your emotional, like your feelings and your thoughts. And doing shadow work allows you to become more emotionally intelligent, meaning that one, it brings you closer to enlightenment, because when you let go of those dark emotions, when you're not letting the shadow seep into your light, you're able to actually let more light in. And I like talking in the terms of light and dark because I work very much off of balance, yin and yang, light and shadow, good and bad, positive and negative. The reason why is really because we are supposed to live a balanced life. We are supposed to have both light and shadow sides to ourselves. We're a duality breed. It's just the earth we live on. There's balance. The one great thing about earth, which is why I think it's so spectacular to the spiritual world, is because of the light and dark and the ability to hold both. Emotions play a huge role on our logic, our mental and emotional intellect, and when you don't know all of the emotions you're feeling, you can't really have that like upgrade. So when you are feeling an upgrade coming, or you're doing your spiritual work or your shadow work or whatever, expect a lot of bad emotions to come up. They have to do this in order to clear the path for more light to come in. When more light comes in, more information from the spiritual world comes in, psychic abilities come in, and you can just hold more room for happiness and joy and those kind of like higher vibe emotions. When you have a lot of shadows going on, you don't have a lot of room for the good stuff. So if you are trying to make room for the good stuff, you can't just go from being like, oh, I feel poopy, okay, I'll just be happy. And this is where positive thinking does not work, because you can try and layer positive thinking on your shadows. Your shadows are still there. They're still gonna creep up when you least expect it, when you don't want them to, and they're gonna cause conflict and troubles and problems. So the only way to really heal emotionally and to feel happier and to kind of like climb up on that high vibe emotion chart is to get in control of your shadows, which is where shadow work comes in. When you get in control of your shadows, and when you do the shadow work, or when you just acknowledge and are self-aware and work on your shadows when they come up, it's key because it's giving you control over your own emotions. So if you're ever somebody who's like blowing up out of anger randomly, anger is your shadow emotion that you need to work on. And when you work on that, it's not that the anger is just completely gonna go away. It's just that it's easier for you to calm it down and to realize like, okay, I'm being angry about this, why? And then you can find answers. And then for the future you can either be more prepared or just avoid the situations that are gonna bring out your shadows. Having shadows around certain people, certain places, certain things, also allows you to see the things that don't work for you, that don't align for you. So if somebody's bringing out your shadows, that's the clue that this isn't in alignment for your light. So shadows are a really great way of telling us, don't do this, because if we're happy all the time, how do we know what's right for us and what's not? And that's the great thing about understanding your shadows, or at least starting to understand your shadows, because you're understanding, it's showing you what's not working, what you need to let go of. So on saying that, I also want to mention that when you're doing specific shadow work, please make sure you're doing it not by yourself, but that you're doing it with, especially if it's your first few times, that you're doing it with somebody who knows what they're doing, who can walk you through it, whether it's like a shadow work coach or like a mental health therapist. Whichever one it is, do it with someone, because the shit that comes up is fucking scary. And through your shadows is a really great way to find out any core trauma that you have, any ancestral trauma. It can even go into karma, ancestral karma that you're healing, that you're kind of going through. So that's why working with your shadows is great, because it's showing you what's not working, and it's showing you how to change it so that you can have things that work in your favor. On saying that, you have to still concentrate on the light, meaning basically whatever you think about often on a regular basis is what you're going to attract. Simple, basic law of attraction, especially when you're dealing with emotions, because your emotions amplify the law of attraction. They amplify manifestation. What that means is, if you're concentrating, especially if you're in the process of like manifesting stuff, if you're in the process of, you know, wanting to attract a new job or a new opportunity or whatever the case may be, and you're working on your shadows, and your shadows are like anger, then you're just going to be attracting anger. So when you're doing shadow work, you really have to set a time, or any sort of like processing emotions, you really have to set a time and be like, okay, I'm processing these emotions now. It can be through journaling, it can be like in the moment as they come up, it can be you know, what I like to do for myself is, if I have certain shadows coming up that I need to work on, I'll say like, okay, just keep it calm for now. I'm going to come back tonight, or whatever the case may be, and I will deal with the shadows then. Right now, I need my peace. And just saying those words aloud, it gives me room to automatically control my shadows and say, I know you're there, I recognize you, we have to talk, but this isn't a good time. Come back later tonight. And sometimes I'll set up like a specific, you know, when my daughter's in bed, or when I start my meditation, I can work on my shadows, or whatever the case may be. But I make sure that when I'm working on my shadows, it's an appropriate time for me, because that, I mean, working through your shadows is a fucking bitch. You're gonna bawl your eyes out. You're gonna be cranky and angry and irritated, and you don't necessarily, you don't necessarily want to be working on your shadows when, you know, you've got kids to take care of, you've got to go to work. So when your shadows come up, being able to tell them, not right now, come back tonight, or we'll deal with it this weekend, but writing it down that second so that you can come back to it. You can look through your journal and be like, okay, at 9:05, I was feeling this way, my shadow of anger came up, this is what I was doing when it came up, and leave it. And then that weekend, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 days later, when you come back to it, you can look through your journal and automatically go back to that moment and start working on it right away. Yeah, so working on your shadows is one thing, and the reason why you need to do it in a separate time is so that you don't mess up your manifestation, your law of attraction. And having that control over your emotions is attracting more control over your emotions to bring you to full enlightenment. when you are working on your shadows, to not interfere with your positive light that you're attracting, sitting in those emotions. And when you are not in those emotions, actually saying stuff like recognize the difference between your light and shadow, and say, I let go of my shadow, I bring in the light. Or just simply say, I shed light on my shadows, I shed light on my shadows. And the more shadows that you're working through, the better. As scary as that sounds, if you are going through like an emotional upheaval and your shadows are just all around you, that means that some good stuff is coming in real fast. So the sooner you get to work on these shadows, the better it'll be in the long run, or in the soon run, if it's coming in that fast. Yeah. And then one of the good things about setting up time to work on those shadows and not letting it consume your entire day is the control thing that we've already mentioned, but also the fact that you're not interfering with your law of attraction. And this is what I'm trying to get to. Basically, when you are having anger come up as an emotion, you're like, oh, I don't want the anger to be there, and then you get even more angry. Instead of just like being like, I don't want anger to be there, and getting more angry, a great thing to do is, like I said before, right now is not the time for me to deal with my anger. I will jot it down and I will keep it in my back pocket until I'm ready to come back to it tonight or this weekend. But in the meantime, I am going to be grateful that shadows are coming up to let in more light. That's all you have to say. You just have to acknowledge your shadow is coming up to let in more light. And with saying that, you're actually attracting more light. And with saying that, it's almost like you're telling the universe, I know my shadows are coming up for a reason. I'm choosing not to concentrate on them. I will work on them, but I'd like to keep letting more light come in. And I also feel like it's a really great way of telling our spiritual team, like, I'm already breaking, you guys gotta give me a minute. And if you say it out loud like that, just kind of like, you guys, I know I have shadows coming up, I know I need to work on my anger, I know whatever the case may be, but I can't do it right now. I am grateful for my shadows coming up, I am grateful for more light coming in. However, right now is not a time for me to deal with it. I will deal with the shadows later. Just talking to your spirit guides. I'm going to do another episode on that because it's the weirdest thing, but it's so empowering and hopeful. So as a closing note, shedding light on your shadows coming up is a great thing. Just when your shadows are there, don't forget that you also carry a whole lot of light. And if your shadows are coming up and kind of like literally slapping you in the face, it's to help you understand there are stuff for you to work on now, right now, because there is good things coming your way. So if you can work on your shadows like as soon as they come up, and I don't mean like in that second, but I mean like that night, that week, if you can work on it as it's coming up, not only will you be able to clear those shadows out better and faster, you're not allowing the shadow to take over your light. When you suppress emotions, when you suppress these shadows, you're not, it's like if you look at your aura and you have your shadows coming in and you're letting them stay there, your aura is going to be full of shadows, and in order to keep those shadows in, light has to leave. So whatever it is that's wanting to leave, make sure it's the shadows wanting to leave, not the light. If you don't take care of your shadows, how are you going to have room for light? And if you want more light in, you got to get rid of some of those shadows to let more light in. It's as simple as that. It's duality, yin and yang, balance. We have to spiritually evolve, we have to be emotionally intelligent, and that happens through mental health practices, through understanding how our emotions work, and through literally using your mind to talk to your emotions to figure out what your emotions are, what they're about, and what they're trying to tell you. Your emotions are your intuition, are your spiritual higher self key to living a good life, to doing whatever it is that you were sent here on earth to do. Those are all great things. and just keep working on it. Like, you guys are doing amazing. I think just as a society, the fact that we're able to actually talk about mental health and being emotionally intelligent and trying to figure out how do we do that, I think that's fucking fantastic. I think it's been thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, I don't even know, years, where humans have just kind of been on the dark side of things for too long and the shadow side of things for too long. And I feel like there's just such a great momentum of balancing out the dark and light. So if you're, you know, even if you're watching this out of curiosity, out of wanting to learn, I think that's a great start. And I battled with my shadows for so long, so I understand how hard it can be, and healing is a privilege, and that's going to be my next episode. So we'll see you then. Bye.